I'm Chad, and what you just heard was some pentatonic playing. This is a guitar lesson on pentatonics and the chord shapes within them. In this lesson, I will 1. Explain pentatonic scale composition, 2. Explain the fretboard layout and positions, 3. Give some examples of equivalent sounds, and 4. Show the major and minor chord shapes within the pentatonic shapes. So if we start with number 1, it's explain pentatonic scale composition. So we're going to start first with a major scale, which is 7 notes in a major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then your root, which is 1. And if we break that apart all on the one string, and you can visually see the spaces between the notes, and you get whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So the half note here is just 1 fret, and the whole note is 2 frets. This also corresponds to the 1s and the 0.5s on the diagram that might have popped up on your screen. You'll see 1s and 0.5s, and that's what that indicates, is the interval spacing between the notes. So for a major pentatonic, the difference is we're removing notes. There's only 5 notes in a pentatonic, meaning 5. So we're going to remove the 4th and the 7th, remove this note, remove this note, and that gives us our major pentatonic, which is 5 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the root. And we could also break apart the intervals for that all on one string, and we get whole, whole. And then this jump here is 1.5, which is equivalent to a half step plus a whole step. I don't know if you can see this. Also known as a minor third, and can be played like this. They're sonically equivalent, so that it would occur in like a minor chord you'd hear. Notice a minor third. It's a minor third right here. We're going to move on from a major pentatonic to a minor pentatonic, and they're using the same exact notes, so that's important to understand, but it's starting at a different root note. So your tonal center is different, but the actual notes that are played are the same. So if you look at your piano keyboard, notice it's starting at A and then ending on A, as opposed to starting from C and then ending on C. But pretty much if you spread the whole keyboard out, you would see that all the notes are the same in the scales, but they're just where they start and end, like where the tonal center kind of resolves back to. So then we're going to move on to the fretboard and explaining the fretboard layout and the positions. And if you look at the screen that might have just popped up, you'll see a fretboard with a lot of dots on it. This is in this bottom half of the screen. And the black dots indicate Those are the A notes, which is the root in a minor pentatonic. And then the gray shaded notes are the C notes, which is the root in a major pentatonic. And if you notice, if you go to the top half of the diagram, you'll see 5 different positions laid out, and those map exactly the same from minor to major. It's just which different root notes you're starting with, either an A or a C. But otherwise, the 5 shapes are the same, so you don't have to learn a million shapes. Just 5 is sufficient. This also knows relative major and minor between the A minor and the C are known as relative majors and minors. That is important to note because they're sharing the same notes. I'll explain that. So with the positions, I'll give you a quick overview. There's 5 of them. You'll see I also have numbers kind of showing where they are occurring on the fretboard. I'll start with position 5, and I'm going to just play through all the positions from 5 all the way to the left, all the way to 5 all the way on the right, so that you can kind of see an example of that. So right now I'm in 5. I should do a consistent tempo too, so that's important. Now we're switching over into position 1. Now we're switching into 2. Whoops. And make sure in the fingering for 2, what you generally want to do is you generally want to skip over and use this finger for this note. And then we skip to here. So now we're in position 3, and then we can continue on to position 4. And then we end in position number 5. So you could practice those slowly at first, and then you can try to speed them up once you've been able to do them. So. So those give you the different pentatonic shapes, and I also would like to explain the fret spacing. If you notice on your diagram, I'm not sure if it's circled. I have it circled or not, but many times there's these 4 where you have 4 frets. Between here and here, as I discussed, was a minor third. And what I want to point out is that this occurs in multiple places. Whenever you see these a pattern of 2 of these kind of occurring in parallel. So I could play it over here, and I could also play it over on the 12th fret. Right? So those are the same notes, and you're recognizing it kind of by these 2 giant bars together. And it's also played down here on the bass note, right? Or you could play it on the 5th. Again, you're always starting with A, so it's important to know where your A's are. You could start with this A. Okay, so for this one, on the 10th fret, this is the one that's a little different. Like all the other ones are occurring in parallel, and you're like, why is this one not in parallel? Well, it's because it's part of the third position shape. So it's part of that shape, and it's because the interval between these two strings right here, the second and third string, is between the second and third string is a third, as opposed to the interval between every other string on the guitar is a fourth. And so because the interval is a third, that's why you're shifted. That's why you have to shift over to the left one. The reason I'm pointing this out is because it makes sense. You're like, oh, regardless of where I am in the guitar, like whatever I'm playing, like I recognize I'm kind of in that I'm in that part of the sequence of the pentatonic scale. You know, of the sequence. For example, I'm jumping a minor third, and then I'm going up a whole step. So between here is also equivalent to this, right? So minor third, whole step, and up again another minor third. So so it's like it's a good way to kind of recognize that those are sonically equivalent across anywhere you are on the guitar, as part of the as part of the pentatonic scale. And that's really what we're going to get to next. Is we're going to talk about let's see, parallel. I talked about that. We're going to talk about sonic equivalency and octaves on the guitar. So if I start with this A, I can jump up an octave. And so those are the same notes, just an octave higher. People know that, I believe. But it's important to point out, just because it's important to know where your A's are and like where the octaves are. And you can play this in the scale. So it's part of so it's part of shape 5. Right? It might take more time to go through all of it. So we're just so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just try to maybe play that one sequence in different areas of the neck. So I'll play it here, which is sonically. So the important thing is this is sonically equivalent. This A here. Right? So this is the sonic. What you just heard over here is sonically equivalent to over here, but it's played in a different shape, pentatonic shape. And I could also move down to the 12th fret and play this A here. And we're in another position again. And again, I play the same thing, but it's a different part of the fretboard. Same exact notes that you're hearing, same exact pitches that you're hearing, just played in a different position. Okay, so that's like the key point I'm trying to show here. You can also, so if I jump up an octave here, this pattern, this spacing here is an octave, which is important to note. I can also jump up into another higher octave here, right? So now I'm back in position 5. And you could also go to the lower octave too. So whoops. So this is position 1, and Another thing I would like to point out is that so I showed some examples of sonically playing things. I was always going to the right, if you notice. Like I was always starting with the root and then kind of like progressing to the right. But you can also start with the root and then progress to the left. So an example would be, whoops, hit my A. So there I was going to the left. If I go back to this A, instead of going, whoops, I could also jump to the first string A instead. So instead of going this direction, I'm going this direction. So, whoops. And again, like sonically, you're hearing the same thing over and over, the same pitches and everything. It's because it's the same exact notes, just played at different strings and positions on the guitar. So another example would be on the 12th fret, instead of going this direction, we're now going to go the other direction. So hitting this octave A, and now we're again in that third position. And this is the only position. This third position is kind of a special position because it's actually 1, 2, 3, 4. It occupies 5 frets, whereas all the other positions only occupy 4 frets. But really, when you think about the positions, they're not really boxes. They're the reason we would think of them as boxes is because you can go up and down the scale, but they're really all connected. They share the same notes. So like and as I showed you, you have a choice of like where you want to move. So when I'm doing, if you notice the position 1, the notes all on the right of position 1 are all shared with the notes on the left of the second position. We're going to do number 4 now, which is major and minor chord shapes within the pentatonic shapes. So as you see, all these 5 different shapes contain all the notes C, D, E, G, A, C, and there are chords like hidden kind of within these giant pentatonic shapes. There's smaller chord shapes that exist and that are used and that I use. For example, would be A minor. So that's the A minor, and it's the E. This shape that I'm showing you is the E shape because it comes from the E minor shape because it comes from E minor down here. And to give you another example would be the A up here, which is the A minor shape on the 12th fret, which is also equivalent to the 0th fret, which is why it's called the A minor shape. So this A minor so hopefully you'll see that, like, so I colored coded the shapes like that when I'm playing a chord here, I have color coded, if you look, like, you know, I've color coded the notes that I'm playing. So the same thing applies if we move on to the next sheet, which might pop up, and I'll kind of go through this in a little bit more detail in a second. But for right now, we're going to go to the next sheet, which shows you the major shapes. So if we play the C major chord, we also have our associated pentatonic. This shape again is the E shape. I will name out the shapes just because I think it's informative, but for all practical purposes, just think of this as a C. You don't have to like worry that it's an E shape, but I wanted to kind of show you that like where it's getting its name from technically. So then we're going to move on, and I'll show you the C down here. I think we're in 5th position. So what I'm going to do now actually is I'm going to kind of try to go through a little bit quicker on all the scale shapes, starting from the left to the right. And if you notice, the next sheet that just popped up, or has already popped up, was the diagram, and I created this to show shared notes, to show that notes are shared between different shapes, and there's just different ways of playing the same chord in different positions. So we're going to start with A minor, and your root is here, and all the notes are green. So the green notes means, those are the notes in the chord that are being used to play the chord. And then if I were to play the scale, so that's in position 4, technically. So I'm going to go through, and then the other thing I want to point out is all these shapes are movable. So, which is why, that's the whole reason I'm showing all these shapes, is because they're slidable on the guitar, and you can move them anywhere, which is really awesome. So now if we move into another. And the way I do this is when I shift into another shape we're doing all of the A minors again, by the way. These are all A minors, but these are different shapes and positions of the A minor. So when I shift into another one, what I'm doing is I'm looking at the existing notes that I'm already playing, which are the green and yellow, half green, half yellow circles on your sheet. Now I'm using a G minor shape, which is also slidable, which also has pentatonic associated with it. And then this shape, which is D minor shape. We got an all A minors. Using that scale. And then if you shift back to the C shape, C minor shape. That number 3 again, that's a tricky 5-fret one. We're going to end with what we started with, which is the A minor shape. Okay, cool. And then the same thing can also apply to the major shapes. So if you look at the the diagram that I created, which has the major shapes associated with it, it looks very similar to the one with the minor shapes. The only difference is your root note now, instead of starting in A, your black circled root note is starting on C. So this is position 4. And then I'm going to play this way. Play this way. Whoops. Here. Again, you're sharing, like all the shapes are sharing the same notes again, so that's how you move, that's how you think of a way to move from one to another. But we want to start with C. And this, the G also, another thing I want to point out is that, so all these shapes are slidable, is you can play the G from, the G shape from low and also from high. Like for the first 4 strings, you could just play, like you could play it as a partial shape, because it's possible to play, like, you know, every single note in the shape. So you split the G up into low and then to high. And then moving on to the E. So we're playing again. We're doing C major chords. So this is a C, and then we play the associated scale with it. Back to C. I can put my fingers in it. Hopefully the color codes kind of can show you, okay, this is where the name of that shape is coming from. And these are like the fingers that I can use, or I should say the notes that I can use to create that shape within that particular position. So I hope that's helpful, and thank you very much for watching this lesson.